They did when I did it, and that was that was. I'm glad me and Adam didn't say anything outrageous. You know me and Adam. We're always saying outrageous things. Maybe it
We're
was
anesthesia.
because I exited out of the Bucks app. See what happens if I exit out of YouTube TV. It's still there. Interesting. Maybe it's yeah. Let's do it. There we go. Big tie Windisch.
Hey there. Welcome to the Gyro Step, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast, probably a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and GSPN. I am Ty Windisch, one of your hosts, joined as always by the freaky Rohan Katti. It is time. Rohan, it finally happened. We finally got to see Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo play together for the Milwaukee Bucks. They played together on all-star teams. They had not played together for the Bucks in a real game yet. I mean, technically, not a real game yet, but you know what I mean. All this to
It's
say,
NBA action. It's NBA action.
NBA action indeed. Rohan, sir, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Before we actually get started, we have to give a big shout out to something we did yesterday, and our good friend at GSPN, Jordan Tresky. Congratulations to him on getting married. Everyone go
Big
tweet
congrats.
at him. Big congrats to Jordan. Amazing wedding. Happy couple. Just incredible.
Did you see the Bucks got him a very nice wedding present?
They did.
That he had called for a recreation of the Oscar Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar pick, and the Bucks tweeted the video morphing from the Kareem and Oscar to the Dame and Giannis one this morning. I think because of Jordan Tresky. Some people would say, you know, because they were going to play together for the first time. I think you can go either way on that, but I mean, without further ado, I mean, should we get right into it? If you haven't joined us before, if you're here for the hype, welcome. Very glad to have you. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. If you're on YouTube live with us, hello. We will monitor chat, so be sure to sound off in the chat as we go deep on Freaky Time. I want to say first, are you Freaky Time or Freak Time? Because a lot of people are saying Freak Time. I think Freaky Time is better.
I like Freaky Time.
Yeah.
I like Freaky Time. It plays into what did Giannis trademark, like unseen freaky hours or something?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing.
Just lean into it. If you're going Freak Time, might as well go Freaky Time.
I agree with you. I'm in on Freaky Time. Maybe I'll drop a poll in the chat later. But what was your first reaction from Dame and Giannis playing together, and more pointedly Dame playing on the Bucks for the first time? We got more Dame overall than just Dame and Giannis. You know, he played for quite a bit. I think 22 plus minutes, which a little more than I expected, given he had said earlier, you know, it took a while to get his conditioning right after not being able to play in any, obviously, you know, games with the Timber or even scrimmages with the Trailblazers, not the Timberwolves. But what were your first thoughts about Dame on the Bucks?
One, looks really good in a green Bucks uniform. Like those unis are clean. It's such a wonder. It's like we've had this trade for such a long time now. We've known this for a while now, like a few weeks now. And just seeing him put on like a Bucks uniform and just like play alongside Giannis, Brooke, no Chris tonight, unfortunately. But play alongside these guys on the same court. It's like, oh my God, this is real. This is actually happening. Like Damian Lillard, one of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball, is playing with Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. It's just like it was a moment of awe. And just that was my first takeaway. But the second takeaway is, man, that dude has gravity. Man, that dude has gravity. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but just the way he moves on ball, off ball, not a lot of on ball Dame. That's something we're going to talk about. But that he's different. He is very, very different than any other type of player the Bucks have had in recent memory or just all-time franchise history. He's a very, very unique player, He is a very unique talent, and he fits so well with this team already. You can see that this is going to be the seamless fit that we had talked about all since the trade had happened.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it seemed like the seams that were on display were not Dame and Giannis related. It was more some of the rest of the Bucks, I think, getting used to playing with Dame, and I think that is going to be a process. I don't think it's going to cost them big. I mean, they managed to win both the part of the game when Dame and Giannis played together, which is what, we kind of been tracking. How do they play when real players are in? This was the most real players they got, and even though Brook Lopez had about probably one of the worst games you'll see from Brook Lopez, and we'll dive into Brook specifically a little bit later, they still ended up beating the Lakers in the portion of the game when those two were playing. And I think it's because, you mentioned his gravity first. That's totally true, and that was probably one of my biggest takeaways. Also, it's just obscene how good Dame is at basketball. I don't think, obviously, Dame is great, and we've talked about, I mean, I especially have dove deep on, last non-Giannis Buck to get a single MVP vote was, Michael Redd in 2004. He got literally one. Dame has finished as high as fourth. Like, all these rarities, all these accolades that show it. But when you see it on the court, this wasn't even a great Dame game. 22 minutes, shot 30% from the field, but still scored 14, had 3 rebounds and 3 assists in those 22 minutes, partially because of the free throws that I think are going to be huge for the Bucks going forward, how he draws and knocks down free throws at the rate that he can. But just the way he moves, like when he was on ball, the rare times he just kind of glides out there with an effortlessness. I mean, we've never seen on the Bucks. Is that fair to say?
I think it's
in
fair to say.
In our lifetimes.
Yeah, we've never seen anything like this. I don't think has the Bucks ever seen anything like that. I mean, maybe the '80s teams are the most recent, but
but I don't know if it would be the same. I mean, as great as someone like a Sidney Moncrief was, he wasn't the offensive weapon that a Dame. And by the time Oscar was there, later in his career, certainly still a triple-double machine. But we don't need to do the whole historical thing now.
It's like a lot of the Bucks have been graced with a lot of great players, a lot of great scorers, but none of them have really been guards. They've all been like the original point forward, Marcus Johnson, like those type of players. Like you get your Giannis, your Kareem, your Marcus, your Sids, your Bobbies, all these type of guys. None of them have really been dynamic point guards.
Brandon Jennings for 2 games per season is the last time we've seen anything like this. And this was a bad Dame game.
Yeah, it was. But you can even though it was still a bad Dame game, you can still feel the impact that he has on the court and just affecting everyone around him. Like there was a play tie. I believe this was in the second. Yeah, it was in the second half where Bobby Portis sets a screen for Dame, pops out, and then Dame flares after he goes to the screen. And it's just like both guys, and Bobby's just like, oh, there's a guy crashing. I can just pump fake and drive and get to the basket easily. Bobby Portis is becoming like a major role threat, like a driving threat because of Damian Lillard. And that's not a slight on Bobby, but it's like, that's not his game. But it can be because you have so much extra space now. I've never seen anything like this. I shouldn't have brought up a Dame Bobby pick and roll first, because the first Dame Giannis pick and roll was electric. Like you just see both guys go right at the ball, and you just see Giannis catching the ball in space, going to the rim, and it's like, okay, cool. The defense collapses. You see Jay Crowder wide open. You see Malik Beasley wide open. You see Brook Lopez start to crash through the baseline just in case he needs to be ready in the dunker spot. And it's like Jay Crowder misses the shot, but every single person is wide open time. Every single person is wide open time.
That's going to be Chris. Just to cut in quickly, that's going to be Chris, which makes it even more insane on its face.
Yes, and the person that people weren't worried about at all is Malik Beasley, which is just crazy. We'll talk about Malik Beasley later, but let's talk about Dame and Giannis first.
We're going to talk about everyone. This is what we do on this podcast. If you've not joined us before, we're going to do a lot of Dame Giannis. We're going to speed through. I don't have that much for Robin tonight, but we're going to talk about everyone at least a little bit.
I have some stuff about Robin,
but
not
we had good stuff.
We had to preface ourselves before the call. Like we should not start on Andre Jackson Jr.
I was ready to.
You were so ready. But just the amount of space that Giannis had coming off that screen, I don't think he's ever seen that type of space in his life.
Ever. No, and there was a different play. there was a
Yeah,
different
go
play
ahead.
that I thought he spoke to that idea even more because, the Lakers were still able to recover quick enough to make him pass it out on that particular play. The one that stood out to me was it was late, I think, in the second quarter. I'll see if you remember this play. Giannis faked a pass to Dame. They were both at the 3-point line, and Giannis's guy kind of went for it, and Giannis just got to drive into the paint with no one around him. And I was just trying to think, like, when's the last time we've ever seen Giannis get to have the ball in a half court possession and just move toward the paint with no one around him at all? Like, we don't see possessions like that. No disrespect to anyone on the Bucks. There has just not been someone who teams were willing to give Giannis any space at all to prevent a pass to go to someone else. So he would have that opportunity. And I just remember seeing that, like, it's their first game together. They played together for 15 minutes, and Giannis has more like open space opportunities than he probably gets in a full game most of the time, a full 30-minute game.
It's crazy because like I mentioned earlier, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. But just seeing that actually come through and be a viable thing, we can sit here and talk all day about, oh, Giannis is gonna have a ton of space. This pick and roll is gonna be unstoppable. What are you supposed to do as an opposing defense? We can talk about it all day. We actually got to see it in action tonight, and it was as advertised. I would say it wasn't underwhelming at all. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I think here's the thing. It depends if you're looking at process or if you're looking at results, right? And I think, they were
I think the Bucks
clunky
like
early.
to talk about results.
They do like to
process
talk about results more than process, but especially when you're talking about preseason basketball, it's good to look at the process. And I think, there were a bunch of open shots generated that other Bucks missed during especially the first Damian Giannis stint when the Lakers kind of went up big. And I mean, again, credit to the whole team. Like, even without Chris out there, still battled back and ended up winning despite a very cold and just kind of choppy start overall for the Bucks. But I think there were a lot of open looks. And I want to get back to something you touched on. I think the first thing you mentioned was Dame's space. And it wasn't just, oh, there's so much room around a pick and roll and that sort of thing. I think and maybe part of it is, getting him up to speed a little bit and not trying to overexert him early, although he was on ball a bit more in the second half. I think there's a clear focus on, like, we're going to weaponize that space. We're not going to make Dame do all the heavy lifting every possession. He was off ball a ton in the first half. And I know there were some people saying, like, he's got to be on ball more. Like, I think, it's overdoing it. He's not being aggressive enough. And I think they will get more of a cohesiveness. I think there's certainly still some times when he should get the ball and just shoot right away, and either he didn't get it or maybe he didn't shoot right away. I think we'll get there. But I think the general idea of it's not going to be 50 Dame Giannis pick and rolls every game where guys step around. It's going to be Dame comes up, gives the ball to Malik Beasley, moves off ball over to the wing. Malik and Brook do an action, a dribble handoff or whatever, a pick and roll on the wing. Giannis is moving, Dame is moving. That's better offense, right? Like, that's what we've always wanted. How many times have we said we need guys moving? We need the ball moving. We don't need a stagnant action. And as good as the Dame Giannis pick and roll is and is going to be, and I saw somebody put the actual statistics, Charlotte earlier in the chat, 7 possessions with the pick and roll, ended in 10 points, 1.43 points per possession. Obscenely good. And again, they shot poorly. That's an obscenely good.
Ridiculous.
That's an obscenely good. That's
a great pull. That's a great pull.
Thank you, Charlotte. But just doing that over and over again, it's a good action. It shouldn't be the whole offense, though. And I love that they set the tone of, like, guys are going to be involved. And maybe some guys, Brooke, were too involved a little early, maybe taking too many shots. But I still think that's
But does he still think it's let it fly?
He's letting it fly. I don't know if he knows who the coach is, but he is definitely letting it fly. And hey, Brooks earned a lot of respect. I think he's gonna knock down more of those most nights. But I love that that's the offense. I think that's the kind of offense philosophically we've always wanted to see. And I don't think just because Dame is here that it should be, oh, Dame, you're going to shoot 30 times. That doesn't sound like it's what Dame necessarily wants to do either. I think keeping players more involved makes you a more devastating offense. And I think, honestly, like, Dame looked a little Steffi out there sometimes. He didn't move as much as Steph, to be clear. I'm not saying on that level, But there was a lot of like, okay, hand off and then relocate to the corner. Oh, drive in and then relocate right out to the wing again. That's going to be devastating for teams to deal with, even if he doesn't run on the level of Steph.
Because you don't need Dame to have the ball in his hands possession after possession after possession, which is what he's been used to doing his entire career, right? He's needed to be the guy. Like, take the first two possessions of the game, actually. There's a little wedge action that they get Giannis in the post, or you have, like, I think it was Malik Beasley or Jay Crowder and Dame setting off ball screens for Giannis. So to get Giannis posted up against Christian Wood, which, by the way, it's just food. They have full Christian Wood experience.
Giannis hates him, dude. Giannis hates him. Did you see the box out? Giannis could have gotten ejected from the game if that didn't hit the arm and kept going and connected with like Christian Wood's face. That was an aggressive box out. Giannis does not like Christian Wood.
Yeah, I think he goes at his former guys. Like,
I don't think he always goes with the former guys with that level of tenacity. I'm not saying I know Giannis hates Christian Wood. I'm saying from watching that game, it looks like Giannis hates Christian Wood.
he went at him for sure.
He definitely went at him.
Those first two possessions of the game where you're just like, oh yeah, by the way, Damian Lillard, we have this guy. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was one of the most devastating forces in entire league history. So you don't have to have the ball in your hands the entire time. We're going to have this guy sort of assert his dominance. If you want to like go run around off ball, get yourself wide open, you can go do that, because we can afford to have that space. And that's not something Dame's had in his entire career. And that's not something Giannis has had in his entire career. These are two players who have sort of been tailor-made for each other almost. Like, as Giannis said in his press conference and media day, it's like they're cut from the same cloth, these type of players. Obviously, one's had a lot more success than the other in Giannis. But these are two players who've had to do a lot of the heavy lifting for their franchises, have never had an equal sort of dance partner on the same team. Now they do. Now they can each go and get their own. Like I used the Giannis example posting up. You also have examples where it's like, yeah, his first bucket as a Milwaukee Buck. You have Giannis just passing the ball to Dame. He's like, okay, yeah, I don't need to do anything here. Dame, you got this. Let's just take a few jab steps. I'm just going to go stand over here. You don't really need to do anything. A few jab steps. Splash. Like, it's easy. It's
fun.
It's easy with these types of players. It's so easy. And again, this is preseason. This was 15 or 20 minutes of our time, which is just a drop in the bucket of what the NBA season is going to be. But when you see this for the first time ever, these two are playing in this sort of NBA action, this sort of atmosphere. Think about how long it takes to build routines, just in any situation in life. It takes long time to build routines, to sort of get comfortable in new spaces. This is the first time they're trying it, and it already looks easy. I cannot freaking wait.
I mean,
what this NBA season?
2.5 weeks since we found out about the trade.
Yeah.
And since the trade happened, it happened like that day or the next day or whatever. Like, this is so new. Like, forget how much they've been able to even just practice together. He hasn't been a Buck for 3 weeks yet. Like, it's all happened so fast. The fact that we're here already, like, you know, it would have been great if Dame was a Buck longer and they could have built more habits, whatever. But the way it played out, it's pretty exciting from our perspective, because we really got to like jump almost right into this. I know Dame doesn't play the first two preseason games, but you know, less than 3 weeks from finding out you get Dame to watching Dame getting to play for the Bucks is just outstanding. So Giannis's line, you know, this is a Giannis thing a lot, right? You look down and it's like, oh, when did Giannis get 16 and 8 on 70% shooting? I mean, that's not totally new to Dame, that idea. I will say the 16 and 8 in 15 minutes just felt so easy for him. And I think the thing with Giannis that I keep getting excited about is he's not going to have, you know, he's not going to be left totally uncovered often. Those are like, it'll happen more now, but it's still not going to happen often. But what have we always said with Giannis? He doesn't need 1-on-0. He needs 1-on-1, right? Like, that's it.
You need to have like a defender in front of him, because it's food. Like, he's too good to just put one defender on him.
Like, it takes a team. One of my favorite.
Why do you think the whole Giannis barrier was a thing? Because you need the entire freaking team to stop him from getting to where he wants to go.
Exactly. So one of my favorite, and I want to say Anthony Davis, Bucks fans love taking shots at him, probably because of all the Giannis comparisons from years past. Hopefully never again. You know, is a great interior defender, and I think he really made his presence felt in that game. And the Bucks were still able to score in the paint a lot when he was on the floor, just because that's the kind of offense they have. But I mean, when you're looking at teams that have lesser interior defensive presences, I think it's really going to be crazy. And again, 16-8 on 70% shooting, it's not bad. But one of the possessions that
Think about what they're going to do against the Suns when they have Yusuf Nurkic.
Hey, Grayson Allen revenge game though. Your son, if he's in the rotation at that point,
he will be. Come on.
Are you 100% positive?
Yes. For real.
Is there a skill they need less than shooting on the team?
I'm telling you, he's too good.
We'll see. I think he probably does. I just don't know if it's for sure. Anyway, one of the possessions I loved, and I wonder if this was an emphasis or if it just happened. And if it just happened, I hope it becomes an emphasis. When in the first quarter, I think it was still, the Lakers were pressing Dame, and he gets the ball, immediately passes it to Crowder. Crowder immediately passes up to Giannis. And at this point, since there's 3 players on both teams back on the other end of the floor, it's Giannis one-on-one against his defender with Malik Beasley on the other wing. And that's just an unwinnable choice, right? Like, you either double Giannis and Malik Beasley, an amazing shooter who's never open, gets a wide open corner 3, or you don't double Giannis and he scores. They don't double Giannis and he scores. And that's just the kind of like, oh, so they should just do this every time. Like, if they're going to press Dame, you pretty much have to allocate enough defenders that Giannis is going to have a similar look. And I mean, honestly, even Giannis 1-on-2, if there's no one else around, is kind of good. But the fact that you have Malik on the wing out there, or on beyond the arc on the other side, that's just like, as soon as I saw the possession start, I was like, oh, this is points. It's guaranteed points that this happened. I love the focus on utilizing that Dame gravity and weaponizing it beyond just, oh, Dame. And to be clear, when the game is on the line, I think it can, should, and will be, oh, Dame and Giannis together in an action spammed. Like, that's what you do in a late game when you want to win and it's winning time.
You don't even have to, because you still have your bread and butter, by the way, Chris and Giannis.
Yeah, you still have Chris and Giannis
for a decade.
But I just mean, like, there's a time in games when that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, forget the cute stuff, right? Forget the Brook dribble handoff. Like, that's great. Brook go in the dunker spot. Malik Beasley goes space. The primaries have the ball, and if you don't double someone, they're going to take the shot, and maybe they'll still take the shot even if you double someone. Like, that stuff is late game. They should do that all the time. But during the course of a regular season game or even a playoff game, like the second quarter, it's good to not rely on those guys too much. And I just thought the way that they clearly were like, we can abuse the gravity of these 2 guys to make everyone's life so fun, that was clearly a focus. And I'm really happy that that's the note they started this on.
Shout out to Andrew in the chat. Speaking of gravity, saying it's a Sir Isaac Newton offense. And yes, Andrew, he did do gravity. He invented gravity, if you guys didn't.
He also invented apple bottom jeans.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah, I do.
Nice.
Sorry, that sort of derailed me.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, what else can we even talk about in relation to this? Like, it's, first of all, like the awe is coming back for me, by the way.
Yeah.
Where it's just like we're talking all about this, and I'm getting very excited again. It's just...
Well, you know what's fun is we're gonna have another new awe the first time we see the proper big 3 play together.
Yeah.
And Middleton,
by the way,
play.
John Horst did a interview with the ESPN crew.
John Horst media tour is missing the Gyro Step? That doesn't seem right. I'm just saying, can our people get in touch with his people? Numa, call John Horst.
Yeah, Newmark is our people. What was it? Yeah, so John Horst gave an update on Chris Middleton, and he said that Chris practiced full 5-on-5 yesterday, which is Saturday as we're recording this, and that he should be getting some preseason action, and it should be set to go for the start of the regular season, which is great news. Less concerning for Bucks fans that, one, he's going to be able to play in some preseason games, get some preseason action, which is very, very good. You want to see him like actually get his feet wet. It's been a long time since he's had that surgery, sort of played basketball. So it'll be good to see him get back on the court with the guys and get that action before actually starting in the regular season, which is good. That's a good Chris update. Thank you, John Horst.
And we also got an article with a one-on-one with Chris from Eric Name of The Athletic today.
Yeah.
My life is now pre-Freaky Time, post-Freaky Time. Although
Yeah,
Freak Time is winning the poll, which makes me sad.
It doesn't flow as well.
Freaky Time.
Yeah,
Just sounds
Freaky
great.
Time. It sounds great. I mean, like, obviously, if the majority likes Freak Time, we'll go with Freak Time. But it's like Freaky Time is just, in my opinion, it's just a lot cooler.
Where are you at Oakland Euros?
I don't know if they can get away with that.
To me, it's like alphabet soup for Giannis. It's like it's good, but there's one that we should use.
Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't get too upset with Euro puns.
That's true. Well, but do we want to limit them?
That's fair.
Are we losing SEO if it becomes Oakland Euros?
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Or maybe we gain SEO.
Maybe. Some people are saying Freaky Time. Forget the poll. So, it could go either way. We'll see.
All I'm saying is an establishment might have an issue with the Bucks using Oakland Euros.
That's true.
Oakland Euros.
Yeah, I understood which one you meant. Make it a partnership. Maybe they wouldn't. Let's stop talking about strategic marketing and talk about Malik Beasley.
Let's say that for Pat Connaughton.
Yeah. Pat's clocking into his second job right now, broker in this deal.
Malik Beasley, who, by the way, he's going to be the starter. He's going to be the fifth starter. John Horst basically said as much. He said as a starting two guard in this league. And it's like, oh, okay. And Malik Beasley's the starting two guard for this team. So I think that debate, or really not debate, that sort of question that we had about who is going to be the fifth starter.
I'm still going to put a poll up, but I agree with you. Go on.
No, I mean, there's a difference between who should be and who will be. The question of who will be has been answered, and it's like going to be Malik Beasley. I'll tell you what, man. I personally, and I'm not going to throw you under the bus, I personally said on the last episode of the Gyro Step that his comments about, like Adrian Griffith's comments about Malik Beasley getting the toughest assignments, I was like, ooh, do you really want that? Do you really want that if you're a team, if you're the Bucks here? I'll tell you what, man, he competes. He does all the dirty work out there. He does what you need him to do out there. He'll go out there. He'll be that offensive rebounding machine. He'll go and try his hardest on defense. You know who he reminds me of, Ty?
Who?
Grayson Allen.
I knew you were going to do that.
He does. He does remind me of Grayson Allen, because what Grayson Allen was doing last season was like exactly what Malik Beasley's doing.
You're turning people off on Malik Beasley.
But he was doing that sort of work. He was going and doing the dirty work on the offensive boards. He was going and competing. Obviously there's a little bit of a gap on the defensive end, but like that type of role, he's filling that type of role, is he not?
What do you mean there's a gap on the defensive end?
I'm saying that Malik Beasley has more lateral quickness.
Oh, okay. So I thought you were saying there's a gap the other way, which is kind of how I felt coming into the season.
That's how I felt coming into the season. But I think Malik Beasley, again, this is preseason. We don't want to overreact to this, but it looks like the gap is the other way, and that Malik Beasley is a more competent defender than Grayson Allen, who I will defend to this day as being a solid defender.
A fine positional defender who got abused in a tough spot in the Celtics series of 2 years ago, obviously. Malik has been impressive. I think he didn't have a great shooting night, although I feel like he tends to start a little cold on his first couple makes. And then like you look down, you look back up, and it's like, oh, he just drained 3 in like 4 minutes. Like he will knock them down in rapid succession, which is really fun. And he fights. He makes guys make shots over him, which is what most NBA defenders can only do. It is the rare group of defenders that won't let you get a shot off at all, or knock the ball out, or block it, right? Like that's not what happens most of the time. That's why
that's the early 2000s Pistons sort of vibe, you know?
Yeah, well, that's why like the steals and blocks leaders in the league have like 2 a game, or 3 or 4 at most a game for blocks. Like it's really hard to rack up those things throughout the course of a game. Most shots are gonna get shot. There's a lot of shots that happen. You just got to make sure they're not wide open, and I thought Beasley has pretty consistently done that. I mean, there were D'Angelo Russell picked on a lot of guys for the Bucks on this game. Beasley probably put up one of the better fights against him. I think there was also just a clear difference on what they look like when it's Giannis and Brook, and then neither of them out there. I thought there were moments in the second Dame Giannis stint where the interior defense, I called it like a hell jungle, because it's just like the Lakers just couldn't get in there at all. And the perimeter guys were rotating just enough to make sure the threes weren't wide open. And there was just nothing else really available. And that kind of excited me for what the new defense could look like. But Beasley is in there and he's playing his role and he's doing his part. And he's clearly like he's locked in. Jim Ozarski of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel had a great interview with him. I don't know if that was out the last time we talked. Big friend of the pod. And he's locked in. Like, it seems like he's learned from his mistakes in the past off the court. He's learned from his time on the court. He's dedicated to his family. He's a cold weather guy. He likes cold weather. He likes fishing. He likes the Midwest. I'm all in on Malik Beasley as the fifth starter. I was not at all. He was my third choice coming into camp. I think he's just won us over. I think he plays the right way. And also, it helps that just he's like an insane bucket. And I think the offensive potential, and I think this is something we just overlooked, like the offensive potential of their best lineups is just insane if he can step up to that challenge defensively. Like the gravity he provides, I'd say is even higher than Grayson's. Even if you can look at the 3-point percentages, and I'm sure someone will, and say, oh, you mean Grayson's a better shooter? Malik shoots a lot more, and his shots have been harder historically because he hasn't been on the Bucks. I think what he can do shooting the ball and like sometimes driving the ball, he's had a couple nice drives in like every game, some good passes. I think their offensive floor or ceiling is up in the stratosphere, and he's done enough defensively that you can live with that, even if he's obviously not Drew Holiday or whatever else. But yeah, overall very impressive. I think he's locked up that spot, both like how the Bucks are looking at it. And I think most fans at this point are like, yeah, we see the vision here, even if we liked someone else coming in.
Yeah, it's like, could this spot be in flux later? Not in flux, but it could be up for grabs later because of more internal development from guys like Marjan Beauchamp. Mostly just him. I don't really see it. I've seen some stuff in the chat about maybe Ajax. No, I don't think this year, though. We'll talk about some Ajax later.
Yeah, fun guy.
And it's like, could Marjan sort of supplant Malik Beasley as this year goes on?
Ooh.
Maybe.
The way he played tonight, he might be, although it waned a little bit late, but he had some moments tonight.
He was aggressive. He was looking for his shot. He found his shot. He was playing really well. He had some great defensive possessions as well, turning it into offense, just showed that burst. But you know who has burst also is like Malik Beasley. It's more than I really expected him to have at this stage, like especially considering the sour taste he sort of left in people's mouths in his last action in the NBA, which was just being benched in the playoffs by a Western Conference Finals team. I think he took that sort of personally. It's easy to say like all this cliche stuff about, oh, he has a chip on his shoulder like that. It's preseason. He's sort of living up to it's like, sure. Is this a revenge game for him? Sure, it was against the Lakers. Like, but can you see this sort of translating? Yes, because he is showing the right signs. He's doing the right things, making the right plays, and doing stuff that he's been doing in the context of his entire career. Like, this guy's a former 20-point per game scorer. Like, he makes these sort of plays, and it's not even that distant, like not too long ago that he was doing the stuff at an elite level. It's just, it's so good to see. And yeah, I agree with you. I think he has this spot locked up even, and it is locked up.
Yeah, 100% it is. And I think it's fun that the way they're using everyone offensively, like he's going to be more involved than Grayson ever was. And not just because
he's more aggressive. He's more aggressive in his shot. He's more decisive in his movements, and he will shoot the ball. He won't hesitate.
Correct. But I just mean, like, I think he'll be able to do more, both because he's more aggressive and I think more overall offensively skilled, even though, again, Grayson shot to a very accurate percent. Like, Malik Beasley can do more with the ball in his hands. He can do more driving, I think. But even just their skill sets aside, like the way they're doing offense, I mean, how often is he starting basically an action for them? Like, he's right involved. Whereas in the past, the shooter archetype for the Bucks would be like, okay, you stand right here and you wait. Like, they literally had boxes on the floor. Like, this is where you stand, and you get the ball, you shoot, or you drive. And if you don't get the ball, you go back on defense. Like, everyone is involved so far in a way that it just feels like there's going to be some runs where they just look so, like, the ball movement is going to make them have these unstoppable runs, which is so exciting because the stagnation was some of their biggest issues.
I'll tell you what, though. They might have been a little too egalitarian.
They probably were.
But that's almost a better problem to have than what you're talking about with the stagnation, because it's like, oh, instead of just like there being no guys with open shots, all of these guys have open shots and they're not taking. That's a much, much easier problem to fix. Than like, oh my goodness, we can't generate open looks. Oh no, now we have too many open looks and no one's shooting them. Yeah, just tell someone to shoot the open looks and you'll be fine. Obviously, it's going to be a more complicated fix than that, but you get what I'm saying, where it's a much easier, it's a better dilemma to have than what you were just talking about.
I mean, fandom aside, the 15-16 Warriors were like my favorite team to watch play basketball, and like the 13-14 Spurs,
15,
I believe it was.
16, or maybe 18, 19.
No,
Or
because
17, 18 with KD.
no, I didn't like the KD years as much.
You didn't like the KD years as much?
No, because it was just like, because it was just they would cheat so often by just being like, oh, something's not here right away. All right, KD, hit a contested 18-footer again, and okay, I will, and they just win every game. No, I like before KD because they would turn down good shots for great shots, and the ball would just move around so much, and everyone was so involved, and it was just like, it's such a fun style of basketball, and that's how some like the late Duncan Spurs teams, when they were still really
Spurs,
good.
yeah,
Like
the
when
beautiful game Spurs, the 14,
Yes.
14, yeah, 13, 14 Spurs. Yeah.
I think 13-14, when they eviscerated LeBron's Heat team, and it was just like a flurry of just like bing, 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 bing. I mean, it's not going to be on that level, but if we get some approximation and we get the beautiful game Bucks, I mean, I think this basketball team was made for me, Rohan, Katti. That's like, I love the Bucks. Watching the Bucks is more fun for me than watching these other teams. But if the Bucks are going to be like bing, 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 and then it's Dame and Giannis involved in this stuff, I am going to have such a fun 82-game regular season. I'm going to be watching the midseason tournament like a European fan. I'm going to be here doing the ole, ole, ole. My neighbors are going to be pissed. I'm going to be locked in, Rohan. I'm here for this.
It's you and me both, brother. Like this is gonna be one heck of a team to watch. I mean, wow, just hearing you talk about that, it's just like
Am
it
I
took
way
my
off?
breath away.
I
You're
want
not
you
though,
to
but you're
ground
not
me.
though. You're not though, because like we saw, obviously it's not gonna be at that level. Like those, like all respect to Terry, who's gonna be cooking. Terry Stotts, I'm referring to.
He is cooking.
Let him cook. Let him cook. I don't think it's going to reach those types of levels of offense.
I agree.
But if you can employ similar principles, you win those chess matches because you have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like the late stage Spurs teams did not have anyone on par talent wise with either of those two players. I'm not saying in their prime. Obviously, Timmy and Kawhi and Manu and Tony. Like
you don't got to put Manu and Tony in the combo. All respect to them. You don't got to put them in the combo with Giannis.
Okay, Timmy and Kawhi.
Timmy and Kawhi, yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying at their primes it's like, oh, they didn't have that. Obviously, yes. I'm saying in that moment in 2014, when it's like Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't know how to dribble a basketball, and Tim Duncan, who's will fall away from being in a wheelchair. Like those types of players. Like they didn't have this level players of Dame and Giannis. The Bucks do, if anyone's unaware.
It's so fun, dude.
If you can employ like at least half or 75% of those beautiful game offenses, and by the way, you still have these two all-time talents and Chris Middleton. It's just it's unfair. It's unfair, Ty. Like this is not fair.
And it's a super team. It's clearly a super team.
Is it a super team?
Yeah, it's a super team.
Yeah, it's a super team.
Is it a super team? Yeah, it's a super team. A little young Jeezy there. Or just Jeezy now. Forgot he changed it.
Is it just Jeezy?
Yeah, it's just Jeezy. He dropped the young.
Yeah.
He grew up. I mean, honestly, credit to him. That's that's pretty. He's like, he would fit out on the Bucks because that's very self-aware of him to be like, I'm not young anymore. Just Jeezy now.
I'm just Jeezy.
Could you imagine? You know what would be fire in 10 years if he's like, actually, now I'm old Jeezy. My life cycle is nearing its completion. 70-year-old Jeezy. Okay. Let's bounce around some other players. Let's knock out the two probably saddest ones. Let's do the low bros together. I mean, Robin just had a couple nice defensive moments. Just looked irredeemable for most of his minutes.
It wasn't the best. And I will say it wasn't the best matchup with the Lakers, who have a bunch of athletic bigs.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like Robin Lopez has no
Dude,
shot.
Jackson Hayes got some space from him and just yammed. Jackson Hayes was having a dunk contest, man.
If
Whew.
Jackson Hayes is going off against you, you've done something
That is
wrong.
that is problematic. That is
Yeah.
definitely problematic.
Um,
John in the chat goes the low bros, but LOW bros. Indeed, and that was how it is.
Shout out John.
Yeah.
Um, just yeah, it wasn't great. And we talked about Brook. Brook was chucking, but it's preseason. Who cares?
Yeah. He's got to pass the
He's
Dame more. That was the bigger take. I don't care if Brook misses a bunch of threes. We know he'll come through. 3 for 10 overall, 1 for 6 from deep, 4 for 4 from free throw, 4 rebounds, 3 offensive, 3 assists though. He passed a little bit, just not enough. Brook 10 assists next game.
imagine.
That'd be so funny.
Imagine if Brook gets a quadruple double these games.
I'll take a triple double.
Yeah, he's never had one.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's hard to
He
do.
almost got one with blocks last season.
Yeah,
man.
did he get up to 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think he got it to 7 or 8, one of the two.
Yeah, it would be very Brook if he had 10 blocks but like 8 rebounds because he just boxes out the whole game.
Yeah, that would be very
That's super possible.
But yeah, Robin just didn't look great. We know who Brook is at this point. He had some nice flashes, like flashing to the lane, flashing to the dunker spot, that sort of thing. It's fun. He's gonna hit those low leaning shots sometimes. Didn't really hit them a lot so far in this game.
Yeah,
but we know it's gonna be there.
I do think he's got to have his head up a little bit more when he's getting the ball in the guts. There were times when he just completely missed an open good shooter, and it's like I get it, and most of the time it looked more egregious because his touch was off. Also, worth mentioning, they've been in Southern California for way too long before. This game.
They've been there for a week.
Like that's
like
that
5
factor,
days.
That's a big factor in how everything looked. I think.
I wonder how Miles Plumlee's doing.
Dude, Miles Plumlee is Doug from The Hangover right now. Somebody left him on a roof somewhere. We haven't seen him in a while. Maybe that did happen. We haven't seen any of them in a while. I think there's a different reason we haven't seen him in a while. Okay, well, but yeah, a certain extent, I'd like to see Brook pass more. I think to a certain extent, though, he also just is who he is. But I think that'll be fine. You know, when Chris is also out there, there's more space. I think he will just be able to make more of those shots most nights, and then it doesn't really. It's like, it would have been great if you passed to Dame, but you banked in your 2-pointer, and we'll take that too.
Yeah, it's like if you have a 7'1" guy near the rim with incredibly soft touch, like you'll take that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like some things don't get easier than that. It's like, do you want that, or do you want a Dame contested 30-footer? At this point, they might be the same efficiency shot, but like, which is just more of it speaks more to Dame than it does to Brook. But just yeah.
Yeah. Who should we talk about next? You pick.
Let's talk about Marjan. We touched on him a little bit, but we didn't really talk about him a lot. I'm like, man, he looked good, didn't he? He looked really, really good. He did. This was he came in, he was one of the first subs off the bench. And again, does that mean anything a whole lot? Like when it's preseason, who knows? But he was in that first sub group along with the rest of the bench mob.
The ESPN broadcast was like, he may, and I was like, oh, are they gonna say like start? Get into the rotation this year? And I was like, he really should. It's kind of a problem if he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you
assuming they play 10,
Yeah, I was gonna say if you have 9, then there's a chance that he doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ESPN like George Sedano was like all hype and Marjan. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, they love him. I think people who meet him love him.
Yeah, he seems like a great guy. I've heard he's a really good tipper too.
And just his story.
Mm-hmm.
Like he thought about quitting basketball, persevered, got it together, and now, again, factoring in as a probable rotation guy on a very good team. Yeah, this was probably the best case Marjan. I mean, the thing that stood out to me, and because we've seen him, he'll have the spurts where he's getting to the rim, he's playing the aggressive defense. We know he's athletic. The comfort that he had on some of his offensive looks, like the pull-up 2, the 3 he hit, it looked very comfortable and in flow. And his form looked great. Like that pull up too. I was like, when I saw him start to go up, because he wasn't open, I was like, this is gonna be bad. And it was butter. I mean, it was
butter. He has that high release point. He's got that length. It's like, ooh, if this is his shot, that's money. That's absolutely.
That was very impressive.
Yeah, we got an I miss DJ Wilson in the chat, which is just crazy.
Yeah. OKC Blue legend DJ Wilson. That's a good thing. But Marjan stood out. After saying at one point pre-watching Malik play with the Bucks, saying I thought he should be the starter. I don't think Marjan should be the starter. I just think because it is like we're still at this stage because he's a second-year player.
There's steps to this. There's like you have to work your way towards that.
It's
your
the
first step.
consistency.
Yeah, exactly. And your first step is, by the way, you don't just get thrust into a starting spot.
Yeah.
Unlike Bucks legend Thon Maker.
I think he's your favorite player ever.
He might be. We were talking about. Was that on the pod or
was
he does. We were talking about him before the pod. That's why I brought him up. But I just called out someone for saying I miss DJ Wilson. I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I'm such a hypocrite. Like you don't just get thrust into the starting spot right away, but you have to first be in the rotation.
Yeah.
And that's just not something unless John Horst, by the way, during that interview, he was like, yeah, we saw Marjan be really productive in his time in the rotation last year. I was like, when?
Yeah, he wasn't in there much.
When did that happen?
I mean, he did. Remember that he did. I know he obviously didn't play almost at all later in the year. He did have that run probably around the midway point when it was like, oh, maybe he can play every day. And then he was just gone forever when Joe Ingles got healthy and all that stuff. But God, the Bucks were so old, dude.
They were really
They
old.
are a lot less old, even though we still have the Lopez brothers and various other older players. They feel so much younger. Marjan's a big part of that.
They did get younger.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It was pretty hard to get older from where they were at last year. Mike Budenholzer might have found a way, but it would have been difficult. But here we are. We're young.
Pau Gasol coming back.
Oh, my God. Mark. Both of them. Could have 3 sets of brothers.
I love on the broadcast. They're like, when's the last time there were 2 sets of brothers? I was like the Bucks 3 years ago.
The same
like it was the same set of brothers. It's like we're gonna have to check the history books on this one. You don't have to go very far.
Yeah, same team, just same brothers. But Marjan just iron it out, put it together more often, be more. And this year is like it's not like we're saying he needs to have had that happen already. This season is where he can do that, right? Like put it together, become that more complete player. And, this isn't something we dive in, super early all the time. But contractually, if Malik Beasley does have a good year, it's going to be pretty tough to keep him unless he wants to pull a Bobby and like take a lot less in order to stay with the Bucks long term. And even that, like it's just going to be hard. That 2-guard spot, if Malik grabs it and runs this whole season, I can't say campaign anymore because they have campaign the whole season. Then I think that spot could well again be open next year. And then if Marjan can use just being a rotation guy to put it together, he might be primed for just a perfect opportunity. Okay, Charlotte gave us the great stat earlier, clamoring for point guard Pat, pull up Pat conversation. I will say, I mean, for as good as he played, it is kind of funny we're not talking about him more in this combo. One thing that I haven't changed my mind on is I still think that may be the guy who closes more games, whether it's Malik Beasley or Jay Crowder or someone else starting them, because he does so much. Like it feels like Giannis used to. He adds a new thing every year, and we're just like, oh, he just does that now. That's cool. He is handling the ball a little more this year. He's run some pick and rolls, like they're using him more offensively. He's 4 for 9 overall. His only misses were 2s, 4 for 7 from deep. Also contributed 8 rebounds in 24 minutes, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 turnovers for Pat, 12 total points. Just another really good game. I mean, any fear that Pat may have lost it, I don't know where that would have come from anyway, because again, like Chris, he saved it for the playoffs last year. He looks good again. Excited to have Pat as just that completely steady bench wing who always makes the team better.
It's crazy how much like Pat's been here for a while now. It's been this is year 6 or something of Pat on the Bucks. Year 5?
No, is it 6?
I think it might be 6.
Are we old?
Yeah, we are. And Pat, we'll say Pat's old, not us.
We can all be old.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that though.
This is year 6. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But just year in, year out, he's just been steady. I mean, obviously some years have been better than others. Like his first year or two in Milwaukee was a really, really up and down. I'll never forget that game in Charlotte where they started to switch everything, and he was he was the catalyst for that. but it's crazy to see. Also, we were talking before the pod started, but at the end of the game, all these bench guys are out there, and so is Pat. And it's like,
Yeah.
this Bucks team is deep. Like you have to have Pat Connaughton out there. Obviously, you could have other options. Like you could have Gort, you could have Timmy, you could have whatever you want out there. But you could have Marquise
I don't
Bolden.
know if some of these guys exist. I don't know if Amari Moore exists.
I don't think he does.
He's Pepe Silvia, not a real,
Yeah,
just
he
a
doesn't
name.
exist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
we
he's
might
real. I think he played 5 minutes in summer league. I remember him, but so far in preseason he doesn't exist, or nor does Gort.
Yeah, Gort doesn't exist either. I heard he was getting that third two-way though.
Yeah, you holding on to that one like a pit bull.
Yeah. Shout out Mr. Worldwide. But
Dale.
it's he's head coach of the Mavericks now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But we've so lost the sauce.
Reel it in.
Yes, but Pat Connaughton has just been steady year in, year out, and he's just been out there like we're seeing in this preseason, just being steady. We saw him in the playoffs last season just be really like come back and be that guy that we're used to him being. And even throughout all the Bud years, the lineups with Giannis, Chris, Drew, and Pat and Brooke, with Pat as that guy, they were always super, super efficient. They were always like low defensive rating, high offensive rating type, like super death lineups that just didn't get utilized often enough. Because Pat has just been, he's so used to playing with Giannis and Chris and not so much Dame, even though he did get a chance in Portland, not the same player he is now at all. But just like he's so used to playing with these guys, playing off these guys, he knows where he needs to be. There's that ingrown continuity there that just sort of propels him where it's like, yeah, you can trust this guy in these high leverage situations because he's been doing it year in and year out. No matter what, he's like he's the, you know what? He's the new George Hill safety weighted blanket.
Oh, I
think
that.
he's that. I think he's that.
That's
great. I used to call George Hill like a security blanket.
Yeah.
That's Pat. I think Pat's the new security blanket.
He's the big tight end who's always like in the flat for the QB. Like, if you need me, I can get us 4 yards right here, bud. Real safe. Right there for you.
Just give me the ball. It's easy. You can make this pass.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it. I miss George Hill.
He's the weighted blanket tight end.
Yes. I saw someone say that is campaign the best backup point guard the Bucks have had in recent years. I was like, I think it's George Hill. Still,
it's probably George, but they do things so differently. Let's do campaign real quick, and then I want to talk about Crowder because I think
dude's fast.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway. I think the thing is with Payne, maybe he's not better than George Hill, like the best Bucks George Hill version that we saw. Obviously not, the later years when he came back. Even if he's not better, he does add something that Hill never added to the Bucks, and that is that quickness. And it's the on-ball quickness too. Like, Campaign gets to that second level of the defense so quickly, and it really stands out watching the games because the Bucks have not, I mean, you could say backup point guard, they really haven't had many starting point guards who can do that often at that speed. I mean, Drew could certainly get to the second level of the defense, but he just wasn't as physically fast.
I think Bledsoe.
I mean, Bledsoe, if you value also having the ball while doing that, Bledsoe, that's a big consideration there.
Yeah, that's
or
fair.
Like what happens next after you're there. Also, I mean, Campaign has some iffy shots too, but you could see though the speed in which he gets into the paint, blows past his defender. It opens up stuff for guys, and it opens up that floater for him. He's just useful. I still,
especially in the second unit, I think is the biggest thing.
Exactly.
Because they need that guy. Like, the one thing the Bucks second unit has always lacked is just a burst or someone who can create something. Campaign, obviously, he's not going to be like an elite finisher of the rim. He's not going to be an elite mid-range shooter, though he does have a nice runner floater. It's just like he's not going to be that guy, but what he can do is he can leverage a defense with his quickness, and that's like, it's such a low bar, but it's something the Bucks desperately need and haven't had.
You know who we thought was going to do it?
Oh no!
Do you want to try and answer this?
You're gonna make me upset. No, just tell. You're
DJ
gonna make
Augustine.
Oh, it was DJ Augustine.
That was what he was supposed to do.
It was.
And they had to give Campaign 1/18 of the money or something to get a better result, which
Campaign
is kind of funny.
enjoy Philly when we get PJ Tucker.
That could literally happen.
It could.
I don't know if campaign would be in the deal. Whatever. But yeah, I just think like he's a streaky player. I think there's gonna be nights when people are like, can campaign just stop? Like I'm well aware this is gonna happen, but still, as Rohan gets blurry, I like what he adds. And again, for the zero cost of getting him, essentially the vet minimum, it's tax stuff, which thanks for paying it, but we don't. It's not an asset, right? We don't care about that really from a roster building perspective. Like, what a slam dunk move. I mean, clearly he's a big value add. And as you say, as a second unit, like, they're obviously worlds apart as players. But Dame goes out, and the guy you're bringing in is still going to at least pressure defenses. The Bucks have had a lot of good backup point guards, but it's like they're an auxiliary option. Whereas Payne is like, you can just give him the ball, and he'll create shots. And that's just something they haven't had a lot of. Like, I saw someone put Javon as that quick player. Just didn't have the ball a ton unless a bunch of guys were out, and then wasn't really an adept finisher around the rim. Like didn't break guys down off the dribble a lot. Was a very good backup point guard for the Bucks, but it's just a different skill set they haven't had. And I think it's been fun to watch Payne do what he does.
Yeah, shout out the Hugo Bassan mention in the chat.
Do you see what I 2 years away from being 2 years away?
Shout out Bruno as always. Maybe Giannis doesn't like him.
He does not, so don't.
He does not like it. That's an actual guy that Giannis doesn't.
Yeah,
like.
I was told in chat he was play fighting with Wood after the game, so he doesn't actually hate him. But what if he was real fighting him and Christian Wood's just good at dodging or parrying? Who knows?
What if he was just like a maniac? He's just laughing as he just punches him. It's just like that's also an option.
Yeah, we know Giannis isn't a maniac.
See what is Giannis's guy? We know this.
Speaking of, no, never mind. Let's talk about Boss Man.
Boss Man, okay.
You have been on the fifth starter. I want to start it this way. You've been on the fifth starter option for Boss Man. I think more than most at GSPN. Maybe not, but up there. It's been a take that you've shared. After watching him and Malik, I mean, you already said you feel like it's Malik, but would you like to make a case for Boss Man? Do you still see it, him playing with Chris, or do you just, like, what are your thoughts overall on his contributions, and could you still see him in that role?
I do think I could still see him in that role. Again, we need to see him with Chris. We need to see Chris in this lineup to really, really make these decisions, because it's like you need the big three out there. But Boss Man, Jay Crowder, it feels weird saying Jay Crowder. We're just so used to saying Boss Man.
Somebody asked on the last YouTube, so it is good that we should clarify. I think we did I'll have to listen back. We might have done a whole segment with only saying Boss Man and Boss Man 99. Like, the fact that somebody had to comment and go, who is Boss Man? I was like, did we never say his name? Did we just refer to him as Boss Man 99?
Boss Man 99 is Jay Crowder.
Yeah. So everyone knows.
That's
I know. I felt bad. I answered it. I was like, it's Jay Crowder. But I was like, oh my, I can't believe we did a whole segment and only called him by his Twitter handle. That's why we call him that. It's his Twitter handle.
Yeah, he just types in all caps. He's Boss Man.
He's the Boss Man on X.com.
Yes, he is. But Boss Man has just been like, it feels so funny as I go blurry again. But Boss Man, he's a guy who you can trust in these big defensive matchups. You saw him in this game, like bodying AD. Like, he's that type of guy where it's like, yeah, if you need a guy who's just going to be a grinder on the defensive end, like for all we talked about with Malik Beasley and him being like a competitive defender and all these things, Jay Crowder, he cannot replicate Boss Man's physical intensity. It's just not like Jay Crowder's a big, strong man. Like, you cannot you cannot compete with that if you're Malik Beasley, because he's literally built different.
I just love the way I agree with everything you said. I just love the way he's a big, strong man. You talk about Boss Man the way Swifties talk about Travis Kelce. Look at his presence. Look at his hand placement. That's a good, strong man.
Look at him holding that purse. Shout out to the Swifties. We love you, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. GSPN supports the Swifties, and
100%
no other opinions.
No. Rohan's when Rohan turns 22 in 3 years, he will play the song a bunch.
Oh my goodness. But what was I saying? Yeah, Boss Man, I think he still has a chance. Like, he could fit in with those starters because he can be that grinded out physical defender. And we haven't even talked about scheme a lot. this game. But the Bucks were doing like a switch everything if they needed to, except 1-5 pick and rolls, like when Brook is involved. Like they were switching 1 through 4 on ball screens, not off ball screens. But it was just like, yeah, Jay Crowder's a guy who can be a linchpin of that sort of defense. Again, he's fallen off a little bit. Like last year was a disaster with the Bucks, but it might have been a bad matchup. We'll see. Weird coaching dynamics. We'll see. But I think we have so many years of evidence of Jay Crowder being that dude that I don't want to just write him off completely, because he is still capable of doing that. Like he's a big physical defender, and if you ask him to take on these matchups, I'd feel more comfortable with him. Like if it's almost like situationally, like if this fifth starter thing is sort of like up for grabs depending on the game. Like if you're playing a team that's super big, maybe you start Boss Man. Like because he is like a big physical switchy defender who you can ask to do so many different things. Like he's a versatile defender on this team that desperately needs it, especially with Drew being gone.
Shout out to Richard, who's in the chat, and I think he was the one who asked the question. He said, "Thanks, Ty. I don't do X," which is an amazing way to say you don't have Twitter in this day and age. Also in the chat, Tish pointed out a situation with Malik Beasley and Scottie Pippen Jr. that I was forgotten about or was totally unaware of until reading the comment. And I am not going to comment on, but holy expletive. What a messy league. What a messy world. I agree on Bossman, though. And I mean, I've been beating this drum. I mean, I was glad they re-signed him. I was probably the only one out of the 4 of us Bucks podcasters at GSPN who was excited. Yeah, I don't know what.
I mean, I will say, I said at the minimum. If it's anything above the minimum, I would have been upset, but they got him on the minimum. That is great, tremendous value. Continue.
But I was just excited at the prospect of him coming back as a player more than most, because I thought, and I've read since that like, oh, he wasn't great at all with the Bucks. I still think you watch that tape. I would challenge anyone. Prove that I'm misremembering. I think you watch the regular season Jay Crowder Bucks tape, and he looks like a great fit. I think he looks like a great fit again.
The key thing is regular season.
It is. But again, 40 minutes versus 400 minutes, and everything was wrong with the Bucks in that playoff run. I'm not going to pin it all on the boss man. Also, I'm glad I actually remembered, because you talked about the coaching thing. He had a quote in his article with Eric Name that it was legit eye-opening. I read it and I was like, my eyes open. Rohan didn't see.
Yeah.
They opened. And I think it confirms, like, I don't think we have to say, allegedly it sounds like the intensity wasn't the same that last year with Bud. Did you remember the term he used for the Bucks culture? He said it was like a country club vibe in the facility, like the way they approach the intensity at practices. He used that term, and I was just like, yeah, I think, and the way he and Bobby both talk about it, and Bobby has some quotes as well, like talking about just the change and with Crowder, I think the intensity is very welcomed, and I think it's something Crowder responds to. And I'm not saying there was a rift, like he had beef specifically with Mike Budenholzer. I have no idea about that. But clearly there was a disconnect there. And I think, again, like they would have these games where like the Grizzlies game, the Celtics game in the regular season, and they would just get pasted in what should be a big game. And it did seem like they came out, practice swinging on the golf course. And the Grizzlies are playing roller derby. Like it was different. It was such different levels. And I'm glad that Boss Man is speaking on this. It's good. It's just good for us to know. And I'm glad that he is. I love the vibe he brings. Like he's the adult in the room, but he's also like, I want to champion the defense. I want to organize us defensively. I want to take on those challenges. He's been shooting the ball well. There's a lot to like about Boss Man. I don't think he should start unless it's a very situational thing, which to me makes more sense in the playoffs. But I love what he brings.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. He's definitely going to be one of the first guys off the bench. Like, no question about it. Like, it's going to be Bobby and Bossman.
Bobby, Bossman, Pat is your trio off the bench, and then campaign. I think positionally.
BBPC?
What?
I don't know. I'm trying to like make an. It's.
Oh, you're trying. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, let's take campaign out of there. Otherwise, it'll get messy real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Bossman's gonna have a real place, and I'm glad they brought him back. Who are we missing here? Bobby. We touched on Bobby a little bit. Just like He's been doing a lot of bringing the ball up the floor.
I will say there was 2 possessions where he was going to, and Dame was behind him, and I think Dame kind of was like, "Hey, hey," and then Bobby passed it to him, and Bobby kind of had the energy of like, "Okay."
I guess it's Damian Lillard.
I know you. Okay, I'll give you the ball. I wanted to, I could do it, but I'll give you the ball.
If that was Cameron Payne out there, I'm bringing the ball.
Yeah.
It's not a top 75 guy, you know.
Yeah.
I can't believe Damian Lillard's a Buck, man. That's crazy. Sorry. It's just that's crazy.
Seeing him out there is still so fun.
It's like the ultimate jersey swap, you know. It's like these photoshops are getting crazy, man. These live video editing photoshops are crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bobby had some like classic Bobby moments where he's gonna like face up, take those jumpers, sort of face up on the baseline. He'll bring the ball up a few times. Just nothing remarkable, I'd say.
Yeah, it was a solid game. I mean, you saw the energy on the boards.
I will say, I was gonna say he was giving a lot of energy contesting shots too.
Yeah,
which is good in
that's good to talk about.
These sort of matchups with the Lakers, like I mentioned earlier, having a bunch of athletic bigs. You need a guy who's more mobile, and it's definitely Bobby compared to Brooke and obviously Robin.
Yeah,
who's just a human paperweight at this point.
Brooke to Robin is like, it's like Bobby to Brooke. I think there's that much. It is wild knowing that they like genetically the same.
They're twins.
Yeah, but like Brooke moves, and again, was Brooke a minute older or a minute younger?
Yeah,
he's a minute older, isn't he?
Minute older.
And he moves like he's not a decade, but a half decade younger.
It's
credit to Brooke for everything he does. Yeah. And then again, Robin is still an NBA player. It's not like he's like, you know, I mean, he's extremely slow for the NBA, but he's still an NBA player. But Brooke at that age, with all the miles and everything, he's still not fast out there, but there's a significant difference. But yeah, Bobby's defensive effort. We saw a lot more zone. That's something I wanted to touch on. Do you think Bobby fits better in a zone than in the drop as the defender, as the big? I would think so, right?
I'd say so, because it's hard to get worse than Bobby in a drop defense.
But so also on the bright side of things, that is what he does. He is a guy kind of like the big version of Malik Beasley, though, right? Like his strength is like, I'll get out there and contest the shot, and like maybe I'll foul, or maybe the guy will hit the shot. But like I think Bobby, like when they switch or when he has to rotate, I mean, he never lacks hustle, so he's gonna be working to get out to the guy, and he contests, like he tries. He looked great doing it in this game. And I think this could be another thing, like, you know, we always focused on, for obvious reasons, how would Brooke adjust to not drop, but also how would Bobby adjust to not drop, and that's more of a positive because again, when they had him as the dropping big, so you know if he's the big man and his guy is setting the screen and pick and roll is what this means for anyone not as familiar with the terminology. You know, you drop back to the rim to not let anyone get to the rim. You know, Brooke Lopez does it in such a way that he covers up everything very well. Bobby, there's a lot of gaps. It's just not what he does well. Bobby, though, I think is a better switch defender, a better rotator, and I think this zone thing could be good for him. I think there's going to be times when, like, if teams aren't finding those quick threes, they're just not going to have anything good looking against the zone. I'm very bullish on how this is going to look because with Giannis and Brooke out there, the paint is just a disaster for the other team. It was so fun when they were doing that.
It was really fun. And I think just generally speaking on that, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this game was, oh my goodness, as I knock my own headphones out of my ears, is just
that's your level of excitement. You can't contain it.
It's just how aggressive this Bucks defense is. It's crazy. Like they're trapping as soon as a guy catches the ball in the corner. They were just like, yeah, we're going to make your life hell because we basically can send 4 defenders at you, with 2 of them being like the out of bounds lines. That's what they're trying to play here. Yeah. It's like if we can send 2 guys in front of you, you can't go forwards. Like you can't go backwards. You can't go to the side because you have the sidelines. It's sort of like, yeah, we're going to pressure you to try and make the toughest pass, which has to be a long pass, which allows the defense to recover. We've seen the Bucks in the old days get burned by Pitbull and the like in terms of like just being stupidly aggressive on defense. The Bucks are doing that, but smarter.
Yeah,
so much smarter. Like Adrian Griffin and this defense are being so much smarter in implementing those sort of principles because like they're doing it in a way where you allow time to recover. Like you're not just doing it with your, like you're trying to run around with your chicken as your head cut off. I really butchered saying that.
We get it.
Yeah, thank you. But like you're allowing your guys inbuilt time to recover based on the passes you're making the offensive players make, which I think is really, really smart.
Yeah, and I thought, I thought the Lakers actually did a really good job of passing out of
They
those
did. They
traps. Like
did.
I was impressed continually at some of the passes they threw from being trapped.
AD especially.
Yeah,
Like
AD was
AD's
good in this
not
game.
he's
AD was
not a
really good in
guy
this
who's
game.
he's not a guy who's known like as a great passer.
Yeah.
Rich Paul might tell you differently, but I've heard he can do the same
as
exact
is
thing
his
Giannis.
job. As is his
Yes,
job. It's
yes,
silly to
yes.
say.
He is his agent, so
Yeah.
he would. Um,
I've got Dame
you're
as
right.
the best rapper and point guard alive, so I
That's
I
fair.
do see where he's coming from.
You're right to point that out. That is good context to give. But it's just like, yeah, AD was making those passes. I was like, okay, it's like you're being doubled by Brook and Giannis, and
Yeah.
you're still finding a way to make a cross court pass. Like, credit to you if you're gonna find guys who can make those type of passes. Like, yeah, I guess you can't really do that against Jokic, but like,
Yeah, no.
if you can do it against most guys, like just not like these apex level players.
Yeah.
And AD.
Yeah. Peak AD is that guy. The issue
No,
is
I
availability
know.
and
I'm
some variation.
joking
I know.
around.
I think it's worth saying because I think AD played a top level AD game
He did
and they still beat him in those minutes, which
without LeBron.
without Chris.
Same player?
Probably not still.
No. But very closer than people would want to admit,
Yeah.
which is still a big gap.
Yeah, it's noticeable. We have to talk about Andre Jackson Jr.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We're over an hour in. We can do
Well,
this.
of course we are. We're almost there. I mean, hey, I don't know if you know this. Dame made his Bucks debut tonight, so I feel like if there's ever a time to do a longer pod, it's this. We're gonna repeat everything we said initially again at the end, just so anyone tuning in late can watch it. We're not really gonna do that. You can just rewind later. But Andre Jackson Jr. I was thinking about Chris Livingston already.
Happy birthday, Chris Livingston.
Happy birthday, Chris Livingston. Played like he knew it was his birthday in not a great way. He had a block.
Spending it in Southern California.
Exactly. Hey, shout out to him. But Andre Jackson Jr., man, I do think he is going to push Marjon for minutes at times. I think they're kind of battling for the same, last wing spot, athletic wing spot. He just still looks really good. He is 2 for 2. He gets to the rim. He is disruptive. And one of the reasons I really want to see him get some minutes with Giannis more, because I think their best defense this year, like that zone we talked about, but then throw in Andre Jackson Jr. as one of the perimeter defenders, because it's not just that he's athletic. He finds the ball. Like he's got a nose for it. Stands out. Like he is continuously getting it, like swiping it out of someone's hands, knocking it out of a passing lane. And they don't all turn into steals. He was credited with no steals, which is crazy. Because I feel like at least twice and maybe 3 times he deflected a ball and then it just got back to the Lakers.
He's so good at digs.
All over
it's
it.
Crazy. It's crazy. Like this guy's like he's one of the toughest things for NBA guys to learn their rookie year is how to play defense at the NBA level. It's crazy that this guy already seems like a game wrecker on defense. And again, he's doing it against like 4th or 5th string guys who might not make it past camp. But just the way he's reading passing lanes and making these deflections, making contact with the ball, seeing the ball, and like anticipating pass, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like this level of defensive acumen this early in your career, it's hard not to get like starstruck by it.
Yeah, and he's got like Livingston, he's got a nose for the ball. He gets rebounds. He's effective around the rim just because like he's just so springy that he just gets up there quickly. I think he's gonna be a good NBA role player, and that's a big win at 36. And again, it's early. We haven't seen him a ton, but I feel like every time I've seen him play NBA action, aka not summer league action, you're just like, oh, he does a lot of good things out there. Like a lot of good things, like at a level where for a rookie, as you mentioned, it's like, oh, okay, he's got a lot of this figured out already. And even offensively, I think he has a good idea of what to do. The shot is obviously going to be a huge question for him, as we've talked about. But even without it, he's able to not like gum up everything. And, no disrespect to your guy, there were like, it was him and Thanasis and Chris Livingston, I think, all together for a while. And the fact that it still didn't look like Ajax was coming up the spacing shows you a lot about how savvy he is moving off the ball and on the
I'll
ball.
tell you what, TA is a good floor spacer, man.
He did play tonight. Chris Livingston, the dunk he had on a perfect cut from a campaign dish, really fun play.
Yeah, like the Bucks have some springy athletes. It's
So
crazy.
fun, dude.
It's crazy. Like garbage time's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it is. There's going to be some high flying dunks and herd games. I can't wait, man.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I think we can not
Especially,
that.
especially with like G League sort of the height, the size.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It's
Ajax
gonna
and
be,
Chris Livingston would, I think, is going to be a double magnet for the Bucks or for the herd, I should say.
I think so.
Hey, shout out to Lockdown Bucks in the chat. Good show, fellas. That was fun for a preseason game. I'm sure. Your guy, their show, whether it just happened or it was going to happen, was also very fun. So appreciate that comment.
Shout out to you guys.
Also, Pat Connaughton was in here. I don't think it was really him. He criticized Malik Beasley quite a bit, so I think it was just someone with a name, Pat Connaughton.
Or he just wants that starting two guard spot.
That would be it. There's a controversy.
Really? Can you imagine?
He's not a good defender. Oh wait, I forgot to use my burner.
Can you imagine? They're just in the locker room and they're just like, "Oh, let's tune into this this post game show, see what they're saying about this debut." Oh, they're talking good things about Malik Beasley. Pat Connaughton
This
just
is
turns on
wrong.
the Karen fingers, and he's just like,
The
"No,
Durant
this is my
fingers.
spot."
The Durant fingers, you mean?
Yeah, the Durant fingers. You're right. It's that'd be so funny.
Was
But
there anything else schematically that stood out to you? I know we've talked a bit about offense and defense already.
I think we've covered it a lot offensively and defensively. So I think I don't think I have anything left to say there. But do we have any other players we want to hit, or should we?
I think it was just TA. I was gonna say quickly. I think not that we really bought into this, especially in the short term. You know, the two-way point guards are not going to factor into the rotation when guys are healthy. I mean, it was all Campaign and Dame, and as it should be. I think we're still bullish
as long as those two are healthy. Like maybe one of those two could, or one of those three, I should say, if Amari Moore exists.
I don't know, man. Pepe Sylvia.
One of those three could turn into
that
like
reference?
No.
It's from a TV show called Always Sunny.
I was going to ask you after the podcast.
Yeah, I'll send you what it is.
Okay, thank you. Wait out. I was playing along with the bit. But yeah, maybe one of those three could turn into like a point guard of the future, just develop, have them in the org, which is good. And again, that's very good. That's good business. I just don't think they're going to factor in, assuming both Dame and Cam are healthy. It's just, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. We're still, again, bullish on Lindell and Ty, especially in the long term. It's just going to be some fun herd games on the non-Bucks nights. I encourage people, watch the games, head up to Oshkosh. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. I think we'll see some Ajax and Chris Livingston, maybe some TA here and there. Sometimes he likes to, stretch the old legs a bit, which is always fun. Do you want to talk about TA? I'll leave it up to you.
We can save it for next time.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna have time next time, but we do have a lot to talk about still before the season. We're gonna do our Bucks stock market IPO. So if you're not aware with what we do, every regular season game, we grade the Bucks via Bucks stock market, which is just not everyone who played, but anyone who changed their stock, either stock up or stock down. We give those ups or down stocks after every Bucks game from the Gyro Step account. So make sure you follow at Gyro Step Podcast.
Yes.
The email is the shorter one, I think.
Yes.
It always throws me. Thank you, Rohan. Smarter than me. So make sure you're following along the Gyro Step account so you're tuned into that. But we will do an IPO, so everyone's starting point. So, Giannis is going to be very high. Dame is going to be very high. The less proven players will be lower. And then we will track the trends. I will say it is always fun to watch kind of the season trends and just see like, oh, we really... we're always off on a couple guys. Somebody will jump, somebody will fall in the rotation, and it's fun to track. Like, oh, we came into this year really high on, whoever. I don't think we did it that year. DJ, you just ruined
one of us was very high on that player.
You just ruined. Well, you know what? Oh, I got a new phone. He was the Bucks did a jersey background for the play number. What was his number?
37.
37. And I kept it as my background on my phone because I was like, never forget how bad that was. It's like Tom Brady putting up the Super Bowl city in his gym. Like, that's where we're gonna be. I was like, never make a take that bad again. And so far, I haven't. He's probably having a good season somewhere.
Maybe.
I'm not still in. I'm not still in. I'm not still in.
You're probably like, he's a switchable big who can hit threes, play great defense somewhere, wherever he is.
I'm grinding 2K20 right now, and I'm just like only funneling him shots. I'm playing only him on defense. I'm not doing that.
That's good. I'd have a lot of. I'd like send
that
help
would be worrying.
To you,
that would be worrying. Yeah.
I'd be very concerned for your mental well-being.
I could see you doing that with Don.
That says a lot about me, doesn't it? You're right. I think I would too. I'll tell you what. Whenever that 2K Dark Matter Thon comes out, I will. Yeah, I will be acquiring the card. But yeah, if we're at this point, we'll say thank you to everyone who's tuned in live or is watching this or listening to this after the fact. We appreciate you listening. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube or your podcast platform of choice. Check us out. We'll be covering the Bucks all season long. Gyro Step, Win in 6. We also have Brewers podcast, Bucks podcast, Catch All Movie podcast. All of the links to that can be found at gspn.info, along with our Discord link, Substack link. Get in on all the action. Don't miss anything. Check out gspn.info for all our links. Thank you all for listening.